you have the mic on the podium turned down?
Good one, Hanna, Beth.
Ouch. All set? Great. Good morning, and thank you all for being here. I am State Senator Hanna Beth Jackson, and I proudly represent the 19th State Senate District, which is all of Santa Barbara County and all of western Ventura County. Most importantly, though, we're all here because we care about the people of California, a state that has a history of insisting on fairness for all its people, and we're here today to talk about fairness. One's personal success and economic well-being should not be determined by their gender. Addressing the economic impacts of gender equality is something that has been critically important to me, and I think to all of us who recognize the fact that women today are either the sole breadwinners, primary breadwinners, or their income is critically important for families to survive. And when it comes to economic parity, we have done great work here in California, but we still have a long way to go to work together with our congressional partners, and I'm very honored that my dear friend and former state senator, now Congresswoman and my shiro, Jackie Spear, is with us, and I'll be introducing her shortly. But the economic realities of life, as well as the social and psychological realities of inequality based on gender, have had and continue to have a significant impact on our women and our children, and particularly girls, as they grow up. You know, women in California earn an estimated 88 cents for every dollar a man makes. Of course, we know for women of color, it is even less. But when you look at that 88-cent number, we know that the pay gap adds to more than $7,000 per year, even at those highest levels. And so while women earn less on average than our male counterparts, we also pay more for virtually the same goods. And this gender-based price discrimination results in women paying thousands of dollars more over the course of our lives. That is wrong. When women earn less on average than our male peers, but often pay more for the same products, this is a tax on being female. That's why we are calling this the pink tax. The pink tax, though, doesn't just affect women. It hurts families as well. As I mentioned, when women are held back financially, we all suffer. Now, women's products cost more than men's products about 42% of the time. In other words, not every product, but 42% of the products out there are likely to cost more to women than they do to men. That number, by the way, comes from the New York City Department of Consumer Affairs that did a report a few years ago called From Cradle to Cane, elderly seniors, women who pay more for products as seniors than their male counterparts. We know, too, these women tend to be at the closest level of poverty at their age as well. This report examined 800 products that are available nationwide. We know the examples are endless. We have some of them here. They go from baby blankets to sports equipment to razors to healthcare products. And as I mentioned, I'd like to focus particularly on these items here, these teddy bears. If you have grandchildren or children and you take them to the store and you want to buy them some products, you know, we try to bribe them, let's be honest. That pink teddy bear is exactly the same as that blue teddy bear. But this one costs $2.50 more. There is no basis for it other than that's the pink one, and it's likely that the little girl is going to want that pink one. Now, if you're in a department store or a store with your children or grandchildren or niece or nephew, and they want that one, and you note, if you're lucky, because frequently these are not in the same area of the store, if you note that this one costs $2.70 more, you may say, "How about the blue one, sweetheart?" And you know very well that you're about to see a young child express their consternation over being forced to get the blue when they want the pink. And you buy them the pink. And that's what happens. And you're paying more because that is part of the gender tax. Now, as I mentioned, it's $1 here, $1 there, $2.50 here. That adds up to real money. And unless there is a justifiable reason, women should not pay more for virtually the same products. And gender is not a justifiable reason. That's why I've introduced SB 873 to ban the practice of charging different prices for goods solely on the basis of gender. Gender price discrimination for services such as dry cleaning has been outlawed in California since 1996 under the Gender Tax Repeal Act that my good friend and Congresswoman Jackie Spear introduced and carried back then, and she will again be sharing a little bit with us about the history of this gender pricing tax. My bill this year expands upon this prohibition to products. And in 2001, working off of the work of then Senator Spear, I had offered a bill to improve compliance with the Gender Tax Repeal Act by requiring that certain businesses disclose the standard pricing they charge and to provide consumers with written price lists upon request that they do so. That bill was also signed into law. But as we fast forward to today, we are still being victimized, both in terms of services, but particularly in terms of products like these. By the way, these two soccer balls, exactly the same. One is white and pink, and that is $2 more than the exact same soccer ball that is in blue and gray. Why is that? Well, there is no excuse for this whatsoever. And so the bottom line is that on average, women earn less and pay more for the same products as men. It's a tax on being female that doesn't just hurt women, it hurts us all. We deserve equal pay and equal prices. That is why we're here, and that is why it is with great pride and pleasure that I introduce Congresswoman Jackie Spear to discuss her legislation and give us perhaps a little bit of history about the building. Thank you, Congresswoman Spear.
Good morning, everyone. I'm thrilled to be back here. It's bringing me back in time, but I remember having one press conference in this room when I was announcing I was abandoning my race for Secretary of State because I was pregnant with our second child, and it was a high-risk pregnancy. And one of our colleagues in the room said, "Well, Ms. Spear, isn't this a blow to feminism?" And I thought to him, what rock did you just come out from under? So hopefully we won't have questions like that today. But I am honored to be here with my great friend, Senator Jackson, and all of the colleagues behind me, including Richard Holobar, the Executive Director of Consumer Federation of California, Hillary Lentini and Vakita Poindexter from National Association of Women Business Owners, Serena Khan, the Chief Executive Officer of the Women's Foundation, and obviously my great friend, Senator Hanna Beth Jackson. And also, we're joined here by my colleague from San Francisco, Senator Scott Wiener, and the Legislative Women's Caucus Chair, Senator Connie Leyva. So, this is a quarter of a century ago that I probably stood in this very room talking about the gender tax and why services here in California were not representative, that a haircut or a dry cleaning of an Oxford shirt was being charged differently because it had a woman's label instead of a men's label. So that legislation was one that did pass, did get signed into law, and said you couldn't base services on gender, you had to base it on the amount of time it took to provide that service. And a private right of action was provided as a result. The Assembly Office of Research at the time did a study and found out that for services alone, women in California were spending $1,400 more a year for the same services that were being provided to men. Now, over the course of our lifetimes, because of the inequality in the wage gap, the fact that women still only make 82 cents as compared to a man, and if you look at women of color, it's 64 cents for African American women, and I think 56 cents or something like that for Latino women. But if over the course of one's lifetime, as a woman, because you're not being paid fairly, it's a $400,000 hit, a $400,000 hit to your life financial worth. And it's really, it's ubiquitous and it's insidious that we still have this kind of discrimination going on, not just in services in some areas, but also in terms of products. You know, recently, Republicans were mocking one of my colleagues in the House of Representatives for paying $80 for a haircut. And then Scott Walker, the former governor of Wisconsin, took a picture and tweeted about his $26 haircut. Yeah, we would all like to only pay $26 for our haircuts. Base it on time and not on gender, and there would be more equality in general. So, Hannah Beth mentioned this was cradle to cane. In some respects, it's cradle to grave. You will see here, particularly for children, they take full advantage of the fact that women are the purchasers of most products in this country. 70 to 80% of all the products purchased in this country are purchased by women. So these two teddy bears were purchased online. And they had that discrepancy. Those pairs of shoes there, children's shoes, there's a 33% tax for the pink one. The Madison Avenue formula is shrink it and pink it, and you can make more money. If you look at these razors, there's about a 13% increase in those razors. So it's real money, and it's having a profound impact on all of us, men and women, because more often than not, you have a family that you're referring to as well. I would just say that this is long past due in terms of being resolved. A quarter of a century ago, I raised this issue in this legislature. We dealt with it as it relates to services. It's time that we do something about it as it relates to products. I have a companion bill that's in the Congress right now. I've introduced it now for 3 sessions of Congress. It's my hope that that measure will be taken up within the next couple of months, and we will address this on a national level as well. But as we've always known, California always leads the way. So I am anticipating that Senator Jackson's bill will show the rest of the country how to do it as well. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Hillary Lentini, who is the president of the National Association of Women Business Owners, a sponsor of this legislation.
I did not want to be taller than my dear friend Vikita here. Good morning. I'm Hillary Lentini, founder of Lentini Design and Marketing, based in Los Angeles. I'm past president of NAWBO LA, and I'm the current president of NAWBO California, as the senator just shared. With me is Vikita Poindexter, founder of Poindexter Consulting Group, based in the Inland Empire. She's the current NAWBO Inland Empire president and the president-elect for NAWBO California. The National Association of Women Business Owners, NAWBO California, represents the interests of over 1.5 million women-owned businesses in all industries across our great state. Data gathered by the Assembly Committee on Consumer Protection, Governmental Efficiency, and Economic Development shows that gender discrimination in pricing results in each adult woman in California paying a gender tax of approximately $2,381 every year. Multiply that out across a woman's working lifetime, and the total is over $95,000 per businesswoman. To describe this amount as significant is an understatement, because this, combined with the gender pay gap, creates discriminatory pricing that systematically and systemically deprives women of an equal opportunity to succeed. This directly impacts women entrepreneurs in terms of funding their own businesses. Multiple studies show that women receive only 2.2% of venture capital and angel funding. 2.2%. As well, the average loan for women-owned businesses is 31% less than for male-owned businesses. Women entrepreneurs must often fund their nascent businesses or their growing businesses out of their own pockets. 40% of women entrepreneurs pull from their personal savings, 40%, and 46% use their personal credit cards to fund their businesses. The bottom line is, any form of gender-based tax undermines the ability of women business owners to compete at a level of parity. We are pleased to be involved in the conversation to rectify this and, ideally, to the implementation of a solution. Thank you.
And next up is Richard Holliber, who is the Executive Director of the Consumer Federation of California.
Good morning, and thank you. On behalf of the Consumer Federation of California, we are thrilled to be here this morning in support of Senate Bill 873. It's great to be here with Senator Jackson, who's been a champion of so many important pieces of legislation affecting consumers, women, working people, and social progress in this state and country. With Congresswoman Spear, who is doing the same effort at the federal level and who really began this fight, as she described many years ago here in California. And we've gotten a long way towards the goal line, and I think this year we're going to make it over the goal line on price discrimination. And also to be here with Senator Leyva, Senator Weiner, and our allies in the progressive business community, which is wonderful to have that coalition with business owners, with organizations that represent consumers, women, and economic justice. No question, price discrimination exists. It is real. You see the examples here. It is unfair. It should be illegal. And when you get to the question of the impacts that it has on families and as parents or other relatives buying products for children, for girls, it is an almost irresistible force that you are fighting when these kinds of clear price discrimination exist and you want to make your children or relatives happy with the things that you buy. You can't really have that sort of conversation with a child about, you know, get the blue stuffed animal because it's cheaper. That is not really the level of conscious thinking and price decision-making, that kind of conversation you can have with a child. We worked on some similar legislation a couple of years ago, and at that time, in addition to these examples, there was one that is no longer a current example, but let me just describe it. There was a shirt being marketed by Levi Strauss, and it was literally called the girlfriend shirt. And the marketing said, wear the same shirt that your boyfriend wears. It was a button-down collar Oxford striped shirt. Exact same shirt, that's what they told consumers, but it cost $2 more to buy the version of that shirt that was marketed for young women as opposed to marketed for their boyfriends. And that's no longer on the market because there was a lot of noise being made at the time. But the practice continues unabated. So we're gonna win this fight this year. We've got a great coalition, and we look forward to finally putting an end to this practice. Thank you.
Our final speaker, and then we'll take some questions if there are any, is Serena Khan, who is the CEO of the Women's Foundation of California. Again, an additional sponsor, an important part of this effort, and I'm thrilled to introduce her to you.
Thank you, Senator Jackson. Again, I'm Serena Khan, the CEO of the Women's Foundation of California, and we are honored and proud to stand here with our colleagues, with Senator Jackson, with Congresswoman Spear, in support of SB 873, because charging women more for the same product is gender discrimination, plain and simple. And that's why we need Senate Bill 873, the Pink Tax Repeal Act, because it's still far too easy for products marketed towards women to cost more. And that is discrimination, it's unfair, and it needs to change, and it will change here in California. The Pink Tax Repeal Act rectifies an injustice in our marketplace that has dramatic implications for the day-to-day lives and financial futures of women and families across California. Let's say that a mom in Fresno wants to buy a bicycle for her 11-year-old daughter to ride around the neighborhood. Right now, it would be perfectly legal for that bicycle to cost as much as 13% more than the exact same blue bicycle because it's pink and marketed towards girls. This kind of gender-based manipulation of the market is nonsense, all on its own, but when you factor in the realities of our state's gender pay gap, as we heard just a few minutes ago, it becomes all the more critical that we implement SB 873. Because the painful truth is that Latina women in California earn about 41 cents for every dollar that a man is paid. A black woman might be taking home 60 cents, and a white or Asian woman would top out at 80 cents. So at the end of the year, that means that on average, a man is making $7,000 more than his woman counterpart, and transgender women are 4 times more likely to experience poverty. So when we charge women and girls more for the very same products, we are only further exacerbating the deep economic inequalities that exist across gender and race lines. The pink tax for any one purchase may be relatively small, but over the course of a lifetime, it adds up. With the Pink Tax Repeal Act, we have a chance to correct this injustice. With the passage of SB 873, we can bring greater fairness to our markets and improve the financial health and well-being of women and girls and our families across the state. The Women's Foundation of California is proud to co-sponsor SB 873, and we thank Senator Hanna Beth Jackson for her leadership on introducing SB 873, for Congresswoman Spear for taking charge of this legislation at the federal level, and for all of our co-sponsors and Senator Leyva for being such long-standing champions for gender justice. Thank you.
So I'm going to get on my tippy toes here. Shrink it and pink it. I feel like that advertisement myself. So we are going to be exploring this issue even further today upon adjournment of the Senate session in the State Capitol Hearing Room 4203, and I hope you'll join us. We'll hear from all the different stakeholders and interest groups in this battle. I find myself, I get more and more upset the more I hear about how we are confronted not only with being paid less, touched more, and now having to pay more for products, whether it's razors as we get older, and I know Congresswoman Spear discussed this on, I think it was the Daily Show, showing adult diapers, how women also pay more for those than men do, for which there's absolutely no justification. And certainly take a look here. I'm just reminded of my grandchildren the last time I took them shopping, what a battle that was in general, and then to fight over pricing becomes even more of a challenge. So with that, I want to thank everyone who's been here with us today and open it up for questions if you have any. Thank you. Yes.
Hi, I was wondering, you mentioned that the
bill from the law from 1996 includes a private right of action. Would this as well?
This bill will follow as did the bill in 1996. The current law, this is a civil rights law violation, and the Unruh Civil Rights Act is the overarching law that covers civil rights violations. This law will be consistent with the Unruh Civil Rights Act, which was passed in 1959 and has been in effect for the last 60-plus years. That does include a private right of action. Again, it follows exactly the enforcement mechanism that has been available for the last 60 years under the Unruh Civil Rights Act. And we are not deviating from that. All right, if you want to take a moment, come and look at these products. Seeing is believing, and they really are priced differently, and they really are exactly the same.
Senator,
Yes, sir.
question. How would this bill address the discrepancy in prices? Would you go after the industry that prices the product or the sellers?
It would be whoever is the first one to market this at a higher price. So if it's the manufacturer who puts on the product what it will cost, that would be the individual or the entity that we would be going after. If it's charged more at the distribution level, that would be the entity. If it's charged more at the retail level, that would be the entity. So, for example, with these two soccer balls, the price has obviously been put on it by the store itself. That would be the place where we would go. If the basis for the cost differential is strictly gender-based, then that would be a violation of this law, and action could be taken to correct that problem through the Unruh Civil Rights Act, through the Department of Fair Employment and Housing, or other mechanism that the Unruh Act calls for. All righty. Thank you all very much for being here, and thank you, Congresswoman Spear, especially for joining us today.